Hello, my name is Brian Cronin. I am the publisher of ThatMusicMag.com and also owner of Mirror Image Media for the past 15 years out of Philadelphia. Throughout the years, I've attended, sponsored, and had my hand in putting together music conferences and festivals. With today's pandemic going on, a lot of these conferences and festivals had to cancel, either rescheduled for a later date or virtually went online. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing John Harris of the Millennium Music Conference and Singer-Songwriter Cape May. I also am interviewing Jeremy Weiss for Launch Music Conference and Drew Little from the East Coast Music Conference. Hello, everyone. Today I have John Harris of Millennium Music Conference and Singer-Songwriter Cape May. I have Jeremy Weiss of the Launch Music Conference and Drew Little of the East Coast Music Conference, also known as ECMC. Basically, at the end of February, we have noticed that the pandemic was sneaking in. People started to get more and more scared to being out in public. South by Southwest had just been shut down by petitions from the people of Austin. So, John, I wanted to shoot over to you real quick. Since it was not officially being announced to social distance, was the shutting of South by Southwest more of a major part in your thought process when you decided to cancel Singer-Songwriter Cape May?
Well, we really didn't have much of a choice by then. I would suggest that the rude awakening came that second week of March when it came from the state, and we lost that weekend, the 13th and 14th at XL Live. We had just made it under the cutoff because I believe the pandemic had already seated in New York City, but we just made it with the Millennium Music Conference at the last weekend of February. But when we lost those shows, I could imagine we just had to wait for the venue to officially let us know that they were, cool with the cancel. But we saw that coming. I waited a week before we did it, but most of the lost those shows, musicians knew it was coming.
Now, with you ending Millennium at the end of February, have you heard anything from anybody who's attended, if they were affected by this pandemic at all afterwards?
No, unfortunately, because we had a lot of people from New York especially, but, we had people from all over the world, and it was crazy because, we should have not probably had Millennium either, in retrospect, but we seem to have made it. I heard more stories about out-of-towners or hotel guests saying that they thought some of the housekeepers were sick, but not anybody. I mean, no, we luckily made that, but I knew that there was going to be no way we were going to bring all the New Yorkers down to Cape May that normally would come from Cape May. They don't even want the people with summer houses coming down there. That's, even though it's Southern Jersey, that's a red state there. So
that's true.
And we're just canceling the event. That was our 13th annual. So the event is just canceled. We'll go to 14 next year, and forever 13 will just be a void. I guess we would be on the weekend of Launch Music Conference, right?
Were you pushing for July, or were you pushing for this current weekend for Cape May?
We're not going to do the Singer-Songwriter of Cape May.
Right.
That's canceled
next year.
Yeah.
But wasn't this the weekend of launch?
Yes, we're supposed to be launching right now. We delayed it about a month ago.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird when Brian said, and I said, it's the weekend, because I still see some events pop up.
Yeah.
All the social medias that you couldn't get to.
Yeah, the Facebook.
But it's someone
calendars
canceled down.
Once this social distancing was in place, obviously with now being April, it was right around the corner. Jeremy, what made you decide to reschedule launch as opposed to just canceling it?
Well, it was, I think everyone on this video will agree. It was not something I was in a rush to do. You spend a lot of time being on schedule. We take 4 to 5 months to really get all of our details sorted. But what I figured was, as it approached, I was in touch with the city regularly, and around here, people were still kind of proceeding with caution, meaning, of course, we were abiding by sheltering in place and using hand sanitizer and staying in as much as possible. But people, you don't want to be alarmist. So if you go back to, I'll say John spot on. I mean, March 13th was like D-Day. And that's when we started thinking, well, let's have a contingency plan. So we kind of waited a couple of weeks, but had the dates in place. The reason that I don't want to push launch any further back is I just had noticed there were tons of other events and tours that were pushing into the fall. And I just felt like, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. We'll try late July. And if we can't get it in that way, we'll just have to perhaps introduce something, maybe we're just maybe lucky to be the first ones to try this virtual experience. We're trying to offer both, but we can't help it if, a disease has compelled us. I think it was someone earlier, maybe Drew, that said, we still need to do this. We still need to connect and exchange information and get to know each other. So necessity is the mother of invention. And now we find ourselves planning 2 music conferences at the same time. I really do hope that we can do something in July. But depending on who you listen to, we're canceled for a year and a half. I mean, it could make your head spin,
Has the venues that you work with been accommodating?
Yes. I think that it's pressed to the point where there says, hell yeah, man, because they have nothing right now. But I also think it's a grave concern that, how long can they last? Will they even exist by the time our event rolls around?
Sure.
I know our major venues will, so I've verified that.
And I know you do yours at the convention center. So has the convention center and the hotel that you work with, they've also been okay with the contracts and everything kind of on pause?
That's what's funny. This year we were using the downtown Holiday Inn. It's brand new. In lieu of the convention center, they had a huge convention that weekend, and we booked for convention center for next year, and we're planning on using both facilities. So we were actually utilizing the brand new Holiday Inn, and like my heart sinks for them because they just opened this pristine facility and got, pummeled by nature, God, whatever. It's terrible.
So obviously, if everything's going the way it should be planning and everything comes in July, why don't you share some light on how it would work for the attendees? Will it be business as usual for launch, or would it be a little bit different? How? Give us a little cap of what you think is going to be.
If it's in person, we're fully deferential to the recommendations of the state and the CDC and the government. So we also, I'm not everybody's a scientist now. They love to throw words around like I need the data, but I'm going to follow the data that they tell me exists and the trends this way things are going. There's a likely possibility that, I kept saying from the beginning, people are they just want to go out. So I think it'll become a term of a risk assessment as opposed to risk-free. I think people will make a determination. Like I've assessed my risk and I want to do this. Things that, of course, that would change are, for example, if they said you can't have more than 50 people, well, then we'll have concurrent panel programming because we have several hundred people at panels. So we would break them up into smaller rooms. We talked to the facility about that. Additionally, when it comes to shows, I said this from the beginning, and I don't mean to sound like some BS altruist, but we're going to lose a lot of money this year. I just thought it was important to our community, our music education community, to have something to plan, to look forward to. So it's not so much the short-term goal of or concern about losing. It's more the long-term about staying connected into the subsequent year in 2021. And I think that it was important to me that people had something to look forward to. That's why the the online option is there, because we'll have live Q&A after the panels. We'll have performance schedule at night. And to answer your question there, the launch will be very much an in the moment thing. So even if you're in your pajama pants in your bedroom, attending launch, it is on those days, the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th of July. And I just thought psychologically that was important. We're all streaming, we're all checking out stuff when we feel like it. And I say, no, these days you get out of bed and you attend this. You're there, even if you can't be there physically.
That's actually really good that you're doing both options to do that. So Drew, your event wasn't planned for months to come. Did you realize the cost outweighed the benefits for either keeping the original date and hoping for the best, or just changing it to a future date?
So we had a lot of things that kind of factored into our decision. It's funny. I actually I coach baseball, and I have several kids on my teams who have older parents or older grandparents that they live with. And so I was paying a lot of attention to transmission to the elderly community early on, people with compromised immune systems and things like that. I was probably the first person that I know that was doing like an elbow bump instead of a handshake. So I thought this was serious, early February. And so we started really watching it then. And then we have a musician who's a fan favorite that comes every year, who's from Japan. And he let us know, I think in February, that he wasn't going to be able to make it in June. And we looked at where our attendance comes from. Our overwhelmingly big draw is from the New York metro area. So when things started going sideways in New York, we realized, things are, this is going to be bad. And then I guess middle of March, the governor issued the stay at home order. And at that point we said, this is something that could clear, that would be irresponsible to go ahead to June without knowing that, because if we have to cancel or shift at the last minute, there's nothing we can do. So we went ahead a month or so ago, I guess, and went ahead and moved the date further out, and we actually set up a second back date in case we can't make that one. So we've sort of got a rolling strategy, layers of contingencies, because we do think it's very important to do. The loss of South by South this year, the loss of Cape May, these are things that musicians need, that they count on, not just to develop their careers, but also to develop their networks and to really keep the momentum up, keep the enthusiasm up for pursuing their dream. And, we wanted to make sure that we were here for that. And then also we work very closely with a lot of venues, and they've said things to us like, we're looking forward to this. This is the light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to need this really bad by August. So that was sort of the all in the pot as far as the decision went.
And like Jeremy, has the venues and the hotels been accommodating with you as well, or are you finding that you had to switch things around?
I think that, as I was saying, the venues and hotels are praying that events happen in their facilities as well. So every day, every week, calendars are just being chopped off. Okay, there went April. Okay, there goes May. Okay, there goes June. When we start dipping into July, I think we'll all be even more bummed out. This isn't like a compulsion for anybody to have to, be the man or put on an event. I think that everyone's super anxious to get back together as a community and get back to work. So the venues are all in. Now, additionally, I am deeply concerned for their viability, moving forward. So that's one of the many reasons that you hope that everybody can get back to it soon, even if it's in a limited capacity. You got to keep an eye on the economics of it for those host venues. We're not asking for discounts or moving anything around that way. We're trying to put our best foot forward there. And then also, as I stated, the importance of this music and event attendance is a huge part, to Drew's point, of many musicians and fans of music's lives, and they need to. I think we miss this terribly. So we're all just really hoping that everything can work. The venues have been A-okay so far.
As far as rescheduling everyone's schedule, Um, as far as the artists are concerned, do you guys have artists that, as Drew, you had mentioned that you had an artist from Japan that couldn't make it in June. Are you guys now finding that you're looking to either reschedule them, hopefully they'll come, or are you looking to replace those artists with somebody else? How has that been working out for you?
So it's a mix. We were originally planning to have fewer artists this year than I think we're ultimately going to have, because we wanted to include as many people as possible. So we actually opened up the size of the roster a bit for those who can make it. So we've had some that have had a conflict. A couple have had a conflict. They can't do August. But mostly what we're hearing is everybody's calendar has been cleared. You know, their whole is wiped out, and they're stoked to get here. I don't think we've had anybody that didn't want to come. We have had a couple who couldn't, but everyone's trying to make it. And so we're just hoping that it's going to be safe and that we'll be able to do it in August. And if not, it'll be October. I hope.
What about your volunteers? You still got your volunteers and your sponsors on board, guys, for both your festivals?
Volunteers, yeah, they can't wait. A little bit different story.
Yeah. I think the sponsors, many of them are going to take a year off, I'm guessing. I mean, if you take a beer or alcohol sponsor, their focus has totally changed now, into getting it into the grocery stores, and the bar stuff has dried up. So, we still have our beer sponsor insofar as we can sell beer to people. And I don't know if that's going to happen. So if you're attending virtually, tip a Bud Light for the boys at launch, won't you?
Yeah, we were closing out our sponsorship contracts for June when this hit. We weren't done selling, but we were close, and we had probably about 10 or 15 grand where they said, "Yeah, we're gonna, send us the contract over. We're ready to roll." And then this hit, and they're like, "Well, let's hang on a minute." So, it's a significant hit. It's noticeable.
I guess what it comes to during this time, companies, they're really focusing more or less on their employees as opposed to their marketing dollars, in a sense.
Yeah, they're trying to avoid layoffs. They want to keep people employed. And even at that, there are people in different industries that I've worked with for years now that are, established leaders in their company who are sitting home on furlough now. It's hit that hard, especially in hospitality.
It totally makes sense.
John, I was going to ask John, I'm sorry. No. I wanted to know if you thought that artists were, I'm not trying to take your job, Brian. I just wondered if you saw a willingness of artists to want to come and perform in Harrisburg. I've had a mixed result. Some people want to keep dates. Other people are like, we're done for the year. I was just curious what your experience was.
For the conference, obviously the Millennium, we made it under. For Cape May, I'm trying to decide whether I take the same lineup that I had this year and just roll it over to next year, or give them the option to do that. My job at XL as a talent buyer was insane, like you would know. I had 3.5 months to cancel. Just finished canceling all the June, but it's crazy. I was able to reschedule 90% of all the shows. Of course, I'm into 2021 with some, but I was able to reschedule most of the ticketed shows. Only 3 tours did I lose, and that's because the tours were so complicated. How could they reschedule them this year? So we've been lucky. We're, as you know, Jeremy, we're on a roll here with this Harrisburg University thing and the XL thing. So we're just, our outside shows will be canceled for June, but there's deposits out, and they don't want to return them. They want to reschedule the shows, as you can imagine. So it's the Wild West right now. And what do we know that we might be, a 500 instead of 1,000 capacity when we return? We don't know that, in which case we'd have to renegotiate all our contracts or go to a door deal on weekend shows. We don't even know yet. So I don't know that anybody has a crystal ball what it's going to look on the other side and what happens if something screws up. Right now, Lancaster is behind Harrisburg or Dauphin County on opening because you had more cases than us. So we'll likely get a couple weeks before you guys.
We're tethered
In
to
which case, we've
Philadelphia.
decided to
Yeah.
open up on our schedule. Yeah, Philly's last.
So I mean,
I'm concerned. I want to find out what's going to happen at Hershey Stadium, Giant Center. What's going to happen there? Once Live Nation and AAG tells us is Peach Festival going to happen in Montage? I mean, we don't know yet.
I don't think they know, because I know that they're trying to, like, I know they've been trying to get refunds back from Live Nation, and I don't think Live Nation's even paying refunds yet. I think they're just trying to hold off and trying to reschedule.
No, that's Ticketmaster. Live Nation does have a policy, and they give 150% of the ticket for your next shows or something. They, believe me, Ticketmaster isn't missing a beat.
Yeah.
I think Eventbrite might be out of business.
Well, I tell you,
It's crazy right now, and no one can predict.
I don't want to brag on Eventbrite too hard, because they're trying to look out for customers. But when I got up, I came into the office one day, and there's an email from them that they've decided just to hold any ticket revenue that they've got from us, without any sort of consultation or anything. Just, hey, we're not giving you your money. Fortunately, we'd actually had a pretty large payout a day or two before, and we also have a pretty robust platform on our website. So we sold most of our tickets after that through our website. So they're not holding a lot of money for us, but there are a lot of promoters out there who use Eventbrite exclusively. And, pardon my French, they're fucked.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to really hurt Eventbrite on the other side.
I think
I don't know that they're going to make it out of this.
So let me ask you a question, John. With being a talent buyer, are you kind of putting, if the artist didn't cancel their tour, are you kind of putting them on pause, so to speak, for lack of a better term?
No, they're all not really. They're all rescheduled. Most of them are October, November into 2021. But like I said, I rescheduled 90% of the dates I had, and they're all on weekends.
Wow.
I told them I wasn't even going to do any weekdays. It's crazy. Well, I mean, who knows that we're going to get to do them? But like I said, I think I can open middle of July with a strong national act that's going to sell come hell or high water, And if that doesn't work, I'll go 2 weeks later. We're waiting to see what the big boys are going to do, because that's going to trickle down to what we can get away with. Right now, Jeremy, I think we have the power. They need us. There might be some big acts that come down to play our venues because they can't do 5,000 cap rooms. They might do 800 to 1,200 cap rooms. Who knows?
I was thinking this might be one of the coolest periods for the music fan in the last 20 years. I mean, you're going to see, like, to your point, enormous acts and 500,000 cap rooms. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel, music fans.
So do you think there's a silver lining to this, is what you're saying?
That's one.
Yeah.
There ain't many, but that's one.
Once they have this, when this pandemic is over, do you see like a new norm for how festivals and conferences will be running in the future? Do you think this is going to affect us going forward? I mean, I'll ask each one of you.
I think everything has changed. The whole paradigm is going to change. I'm not sure if they could do a Peach Festival with camping. I'm not sure that could even happen unless we can test every person that comes into the venue. We're thinking at XL that we want to be able to test our staff ourselves. But I just don't know if the virus is still around unless there's some. I mean, typically a virus tries to infect as many people as possible, and that's 60 to 80% of the population. It's going to take a while unless they come up with a vaccine. So I think everything has changed. I don't know what the other side is going to be, but obviously big events, 30,000 capacity events and arenas. I mean, I have no idea. Like what I say, we have to wait to see what the big boys do, and then it'll trickle down to us.
I was trying to picture this in my brain.
Jeremy, what do you
Yeah.
think?
You just take a bar, and I'm thinking, okay, so do we have lanes to the bar that are 6 feet apart and a turnstile that's 6 feet from the bar, and one person can go through the turnstile, grab their drink, and then they have to get shuttled out through a channel somewhere into a place that can only have 10 people, and it's all fenced off and all this other junk? Or, God willing, do we develop some kind of herd immunity or knowledge of the fact that this is our new risk, this is our new real? I mean, there's a vocal minority of people right now pushing for that I happen to disagree with, because they're more in the denier part of this. What I want to see is where we end up at the point where we agree to live with this. And I don't even know where I stand right now, Brian, on that statement. So we're all still figuring it out as we go. But yeah, I'm concerned that we are now going to become, listen, we already have police, EMTs, fire marshals, and all these people on site at our larger events. Now, do we have to have a clinic? I'm not really sure. It's a little bit daunting when I think about it. It's a little terrifying.
So, I mean, I think there's a number of changes. I mean, so ECMC is set up a little different from other conferences and festivals anyway. My partner and I come out of the tech startup realm, so we're always looking for agility, for being able to change things quickly. And one of the things that's led to with our conference is it's more diffuse. We're not actually in a big convention center. We're in a number of locations within a footprint in the downtown area. So our people are outside more. They're in rooms with more programming going at one time, so the crowds per each room are smaller. And I think we're going to see a lot more in terms of the music fan sort of returning to these smaller, more intimate shows, whether it's to see national acts or whether it's just to get out again. And for a time, I think you're going to see independent artists have a real opportunity, because people are going to want to go out, but they're not going to want to be in a 5,000 head amphitheater and 80,000 head stadium. So I think independent musicians have a real opportunity there. At ECMC, we're planning to have hygiene stations with hand sanitizer, Clorox wipes, and all that stuff, so that even there's a chance of a resurgence, people have some tools there to help protect themselves. And I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think it's the only responsible thing to do, especially when we first come back. Now, the industry as a whole, I think, is in for another shock. One of the reasons the concert industry is so shaken by this, the music industry is so shaken by what's happening in the concert industry, is because they're so reliant on concerts for revenue now.
Exactly.
So much has been forfeited to Spotify. They just kind of threw their hands up a few years ago and said, okay, we'll let them give the music away and we'll make the money on concerts. Well, guess what? If you've got all your eggs in one basket, you drop the basket, you got a problem. So I think we finally start to see the majors really push back against streaming, as they should have done from the very beginning, in my opinion. But if you want to hear me rant about Spotify, we can do a different.
Well, you figure.
Listen, I think the touring industry is like the banks, the airline, baseball, all pro sports. It's too big to fail.
I agree.
The touring industry isn't going anywhere. It's too big to fail.
I agree. I mean, and it's also state by state too, because I noticed like Michigan, I believe they're letting people into their venues now, but they're also they're seating every other table.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. And I don't know how long is that going to last, especially if an artist is performing and you want to get up and dance or what have you to the music, you can't really get close to people. So it's
little boogie corrals on the dance floor so you keep people separated.
Right?
It's going to have to rely on, I think Sweden's doing something where it's kind of like just depending on their citizenship, to handle this the appropriate way, to be responsible. I don't see how there's any other way to gather without a collective consciousness of like the new normal, that you don't hug, you don't rub up against, you don't high five, you don't handshake, you just kind of are considerate of those around you and protective of yourself. That's still a way to get back to life though. And I think that's what I think is at the heart of all of us. We are ultimately going to figure out a way to get back to life. It's not simply economics, it's psychological.
Yeah, people aren't wired to just give up and let the things that matter to them perish without some sort of effort.
I find when you were saying about the live streaming, I think people are now like independent artists in general are using their social media platforms to keep doing shows constantly, and sometimes it gets a little bit redundant because it's like every other day you see the same artist. But now the majors are now catching on to that, and they're bored. So what are they going to do? So they started doing that. I see companies like Stage It are now charging people like $5 and $10 just to watch someone's living room performance. They're trying to make money that way. You see that going to be something that we could be looking for?
Facebook has already started to allow people to stream and charge money. Just starting.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Okay.
It's the new paradigm. But look, there's nothing going to replace a live concert with people.
I agree with that, John.
And you're not going to not have a mosh pit or people riding the rail. I mean, that's rock and roll.
Damn.
And that might be another silver lining. I think when we're able to return to more normal, people are absolutely going to go see that show they want to go see if they can get to it. I was ready to fly to LA for Cool World this month before that got pushed back. That's a show I wasn't going to miss. However, there are lots of people who, for whatever reason, geography, financial resources, wouldn't be able to do that. If things like that are streamed and you can then watch them for a significantly less amount of money, that's potentially a whole new revenue stream for the industry that people haven't really bought into before because there was no need.
Well, I've noticed a ton of failed attempts at that. And I mean, I know one,
absolutely.
We had a group come into launch that was launching a brand new platform years ago that was gone within the year. And it was funded by a very large, reputable artist that had unlimited funding for it. It's just the conventional wisdom was, I don't want to watch this on my phone. I want to go, So
Yes.
People weren't interested in the past. And maybe as I was saying earlier, maybe how it changes people's perception of how to attend a conference or a festival online. I think that might also contribute to concert revenue. So to John's point, I agree 100%. The thousands of people are coming. They're coming eventually. They're coming back. They're going to risk assess and they're going to go. But those who still wanted to go but feel like present circumstances are too prohibitive, there's no longer that I'm getting less by streaming it. It's basically, no, I'm getting all that I can. This is how I get to see this artist. So I actually do think that that's going to be much more explosive, And Brian, I watched maybe 10 or 15 of the local pay me a couple bucks, make a comment on my song things. And then I realized I'm kind of out of a job right now, so I got to stop tipping these assholes.
I saw that too. Like last night, there was somebody who had a bar was looking for people to raise money for their employees. Come watch our live. The bar opened and they did a live performance and the artist performed, and it was actually streaming pretty well, and the sound was amazing. But then they kept saying, spend money, we need money. And I'm thinking, if no one's working, you need the money, they need the money. There's got to be some kind of level ground.
And that's the final component to streaming is, if you don't want to buy a plane ticket, you can't right now. You can't get the hotel right now. You just can't make it all happen. If streaming is a much more viable financial option, I think that's going to bring it up as well. So it sucks. It seems like because people are broke, streaming might be the benefit of that. But I do
Yeah.
think that experience is going to be way more predominant. After people saw what the Elton John thing did, they're like, oh, hold on a second.
Yeah.
People will watch
It's
this,
it's really tough to change consumer behavior, and so, but when you don't have a choice, you change, and so it's introducing people to something. A lot of people that I was never anybody to watch live streams. That was just not my thing. I like the shows. I'm an old punk rock guy. I want to be up. But if you can't be there, this is something you would have never given a chance before. You can now see it as a viable alternative if for some reason you can't do the live show. So it's really introduced a whole new sort of consumer experience to people who wouldn't have tried it otherwise. So I think there's definitely money on the other side there for touring. But also I think you're going to have people who might not have rushed out to a show beforehand, but now that they're not able to, now that when they're able to actually go back out and really go see a band, and years, I think we're going to see, once we're at full occupancy, I think we're going to see a lot of sold out shows, and we're going to see both consumers getting excited about live streaming that never would have before. I think we're going to see people going to shows that maybe didn't go as often as they did before this happened.
I agree with you.
I hope.
I've been seeing artists now that I never had a chance to go see before for whatever reason, and now I'm having the opportunity to go see these artists because I'm watching it here live streaming. So that is the only thing that I see positive about it from my perspective. There's artists that I've always wanted to see, never could see, and now I have the opportunity. And then you think about, well, then we can book them for a future show.
And I think that works kind of the same way for some of the older touring acts for in-person performances. I was really excited to see King Crimson for the first time in June. And of course, that tour is dead now. So if they tour again next year, Robert Fripp's no spring chicken. I'm going to be at that show come hell or high water.
I was thinking about Hall & Oates. I'm glad I got to see them in Hershey before that thing collapsed. I was like, damn, they're in their 70s and they finally get the old band back together, and nature's got something else to say about it.
Daryl Hall's in his 70s.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I cannot imagine
that guy, man.
I cannot imagine doing shows for an older demographic at the club anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's over.
Oh,
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you think all the attendees that you guys will have in the future will be more younger?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess at this point we're coming to a conclusion. Final words, final thoughts. John, I'll start with you and I'll go around. Final thoughts. What do you see we're going to be? I guess the new norm. We already mentioned we don't know where it's going to be. But for final thoughts, are you planning on doing anything different? Scheduling for Millennium, since you will be the first one for 2021.
Yeah, I'm excited because next year will be the 25th year. Maybe I can finally stick a fork in it. The labor of love that has been a quarter of a century. But I'm excited because I think there's a new paradigm. And believe me, this is for me, this is almost my last stop. Like I was about ready to retire anyway, but I'm excited to be involved in what the new paradigm is going to be. And I'm really good at social distancing. I've been that way for the last decade, and I'm really good at this. But I
haven't seen you
flourish
in
in
15
this
years.
I flourish in this atmosphere. This is perfect for me. So I'm excited. I might create a couple new events. Who knows? But I'm excited, and I'm excited for the project that is XL because we're only 2 years old, and we are without a doubt the cleanest. And every artist that plays there wants to come back. Every customer that wants to come back, and we're only 2 years old, and I thought it would take a lot longer for us to be where we are. So I'm excited for that. Thank you.
Great. Jeremy, the dates for launch coming up is 21st to the 23rd of July?
We're doing July 23rd, 24th, and 25th. So if we're in person, we let out on the 26th, the Sunday. We are, moving forward with in person. People can still get hotels and procure badges and make their plans. Everything's fully refundable. The online portion of it as well is available, and it's a little cheaper. We've been building an arsenal. See, so if we're in person, we'll live stream panels. We'll live stream them with live Q&A from the audience and from people submitting questions online. If we're not able to be in person, we've been banking panels, and they're pretty amazing. What we figured was, if we are in person, which we're still pressing ahead with that notion, then we'll have a bank of continuing education stuff that we can offer to people throughout the year. So yes, we are going for it, July 23rd, 24th, and 25th. But the online option is not it's not like it's less than, it's another way for people to address their concerns for their own safety, or for the state or federal government to address concerns for public safety. I am not great at social distancing. I never shut up, and I'm a hugger. So I don't really know what the hell I'm going to do if we can't do this launch thing, but I'm adjusting as best I can. I can't wait to get back into a crowd and know that it's safe, and that we can get back to, the real interpersonal type of communication that I've enjoyed my whole life.
You and me both. I'm exactly the same way. I have been going out of my mind personally, and that's why I love doing these little interviews, so I can continue talking to you guys, staying fresh of mind, and seeing what's going on. Drew, talk about August. What's the dates for ECMC?
There you go. ECMC is August 6th to 9th this year. And we're going to start regular online programming 4 or 5 days a week in the next week or two. And that'll lead up all the way to the conference. So we're going to have, different things, both technical and motivational, to sort of help people get, stay in a positive space on the way up to the conference. So yeah, August 6th to 9th in Norfolk. Right now, I think we have 110 or 112 acts that are invited to appear, and something like 60 or 70 that have confirmed. So, we're working now on making sure we have proper venues for all of those acts. Great music, all different kinds of genres, 6 or 7 countries represented. We have an artist coming from Morocco this year for the first time. So, it's going to be a great event when it happens. And like I say, August 6 to 9 is the plan at the moment. The online programming is going to start a little sooner. As far as your question to the new normal on the other side, we've talked a lot about that today. And I just, when people call what we're going through now the new normal, it really gets on my nerves. I think it frightens people unnecessarily. This is a crisis, and it's an aberration. It's something we're going to figure out how to deal with. There's going to be a vaccine at some point, and we're going to figure out how to make things work again. So the new normal is what's still ahead of us. And I think it's going to be a better normal, probably going to be a more hygienic normal, but it's also going to be a more grateful normal, and a normal where we understand more that we're connected rather than in competition with one another. I think we're going to see a real lean towards collaboration and compassion, frankly. And that's something I'm excited about and looking forward to.
I agree with you.
Here.
I'm gonna at the end of this, I'm gonna obviously have the links to your websites and all the dates and all the information for people to contact you. You guys have anything else you want to add before we conclude?
Continue to support and love music, man. There are many ways to do it. It's so generic, but it's so true. I mean, music is the soundtrack to your life. So you're going to remember the songs during this shitty period of your life. It's just as near and dear as the one that, was the soundtrack to your favorite memory. Get in there.
Yeah. If you can support a band, do that. And also, when you get your stimulus check, if you haven't gotten it yet, if you can spare $25 or $50 to buy a gift certificate from your local restaurant or venue, so that they can keep the doors open and keep some of those folks employed. The more we can do to support each other and keep each other employed, the sooner the economic part of this crisis is going to come to an end. Something like 30 million people have lost their jobs in the last month. Any little bit we can do with that stimulus money to keep some of those people off the rolls, help us all down the road.
Amen to that. John, you have anything you want to add?
Just that, thank you for having me. It was nice seeing you guys virtually
Good to see you,
and
John.
discussing all the stuff we did discuss. I'm excited. I think we're looking at a mid-July, early August at the latest, and I just hope we don't screw it up and that we can all act responsibly and get our shows back, get our economy back, get some semblance of our lives back. And you guys stay safe.